Okay, so this is, let's see, 1:59 a.m., October 25th, Scotland, Edinburgh, Scotland. Doing Legend of Grimrock 2. I'm just going to do the intro for this part, and then the second part of the video will be the actual gameplay, because there's kind of a lot to go through about creating a team. I've got kind of like a little cheat sheet here. I already created a team, but I didn't want to actually start yet, so I got my cheat sheet here with my team on it. Legend of Grimrock, great game, real cheap, easy to find. You can get it on, I'm an advocate of Steam Game Swap. You can get a lot of stuff on there. You can trade so much crap for other crap, and eventually you can work your way up to getting legitimate games, or you can finagle money out of it too. People do that, but I just use it for games mostly. But yeah, it was on a Humble Bundle a while ago, and I picked it up, and it was like $2 for the whole bundle. And I mean, it was such a great game, and it's still even such a good game compared to so many other dungeon crawlers out there that don't really know how to do the genre justice. It's worth your time. It's worth an investment. Basically follows a set number of prisoners that are trapped at the top of a tower, and they have to work their way down to the bottom of the tower to escape. And as you go along, certain events happen, and I'm not going to give it away, but it's a really good game, and it's a first-person dungeon crawler. It's quite difficult, actually. It's puzzle, it's combat, it's all. I mean, it just ramps up in difficulty as you go along. At least the way that I play it. I don't know, but I like to play it that way. Legend of Grimrock 2. I mean, it's incomprehensible. It's a better game in every way, shape, and form. Obviously, it's more money. Current retail price on it's $23, which again is still not bad for the amount of money that you spend on other games to get less time. You're going to get 20 to 40 hours depending on how you play, the difficulty, and your play style. And 20 to 40 hours for a $23 game is great. I mean, how many games do you spend $50, $60 on? You beat it in a day, and then you're done with it. So, Legend of Grimrock 2. So I'm going to create my own characters for it instead of using the predetermined party, because that's the way I like to do it. You can also go old school mode, which turns off the maps, and then you could get out like a sheet of graphic paper and you could draw your own maps, but it's really difficult to do just because the game is happening in real time and you're not always able to. It's not like a turn-based first-person RPG like some of the other ones are. I used to play a bunch of them for a Pocket PC, and a lot of them were really good, but they were all turn-based, so if I was in a bad situation, I could stop for a minute, think about what I was doing, and take an action. This is not turn-based. There are timing to your attacks, and there's cooldowns to your attacks, but it's not turn-based in the traditional sense of the word. So you don't really have time to stop and make decisions the same way. You got to think on the fly, but I like that. Old school mode's not for me, not right now, not for the first playthrough. I'll do it later. Iron Man mode is another one I'm not going to go for. You can't save the game except at save crystals. That's very old school as well. I don't know why they didn't call that old school mode and then like this, Iron Man mode, just because that makes kind of more sense to me. You can only save at a save crystal. But I like to be able to save anywhere because, I'm a nub and I need to save before a bad boss fight just in case I screw up. Single-use crystals, so healing crystals are only usable one time. They're a method of saving, and they're also a way to instantaneously replenish all of the health and all of the energy of your entire team and bring them back to life if they're dead. If you do this single-use crystals, it makes the game exponentially harder because you can only heal at the save crystals one time each. You could heal by resting, but that passes time, and there's a day and night cycle, and that affects certain things in the game, which I won't go into, but it's just another, it's like hard mode on top of hard mode on top of hard mode here. Speaking of which, there are easy, normal, and hard modes, but you can't change the difficulty once you start. I'm going to go normal for my first playthrough. Normal, creating my own characters with nothing extra because I'm boring and I'm lazy. I just want to enjoy the game. I'm going to add all 4 characters into this, and then I'm going to change them here. I'm going to look down at my cheat sheet. I spent like an hour and a half the other day creating a team of characters that I wanted to use. So the first one was Bardock. That's the name of my awesome Minotaur, Bardock. The races are human, insectoid, lizard man, Minotaur, and Ratling. As far as I know, the Ratling is just a new addition from the other game. I kind of went with an all-human team in the other game just because the first time I played through, I didn't know there were other races. I was a newbie at it. So in this one, Minotaur is my personal favorite for my frontliner because you see the strength +5, dexterity -4 is kind of a hit to their accuracy and their evasion, but they get extra vitality to compensate, and we don't need willpower as much. It does control the amount of energy your character has, which is useful for special attacks and stuff, but I mean, I just want him to get the biggest, strongest, heaviest weapon he can find and swing it around like a total badass. Let's see, so Minotaur, and I had him as a barbarian, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so we have an alchemist, barbarian, battle mage, farmer, fighter, knight, rogue, and wizard. And if you're like me, one of these things is not like the other. Farmer. What the heck? It's a farmer. This is like trying to play the Onion Knight in a Final Fantasy game, or I don't even know, trying to go as like the Freelancer class of Bravely Default if you play RPGs. I'm an RPG nut, so this is like, it's for people who just want even more of a challenge. The farmer doesn't gain XP when they kill enemies, they gain XP from eating. Okay? They don't have any skill points at the first level, so they get no skills to start off with, and they only start with 30 health, and they only get 5 per level, and 30 energy and 5 per level. So they're pretty useless. So they're good at digging ditches and the growth cycles of pit root plants, which I don't know if they have literally any impact at all on the actual gameplay. There are plants in the game, but I don't think you can grow them, you just kind of find them, but I don't know for sure. There is also digging, but I don't know. So I made my Minotaur a barb because he gets an additional strength every level, and strength is the main asset for physical attacks, and he has a ton of health right off the start. There's also another one that I like, which is the fighter. That's more of a weapons master, but I just like the barb because I want him to get the biggest, heaviest thing that he can carry, swing it around, and hit hard. So then you have attributes here: strength, dexterity, vitality, and willpower. Anybody familiar with these kind of games, this is a given. Strength is melee damage. It also controls the damage of throwing weapons in this game and your carrying capacity, which you'll see here the max load is 63, and as I add strength to it, it'll go up by a little bit more. For my character, right now, he has other side stats like protection, evasion, damage, accuracy, crit, and his load. Accuracy is really important because the higher your accuracy, the better your chance you have of actually landing your attacks. If you don't have accuracy, you're going to swing, you're going to waste those chances to attack by missing, you're going to deal no damage, and eventually you're going to get overwhelmed. So at least, you know, it's not an unimportant stat for a melee person to have dexterity and accuracy. So I'm going to max out as many points. They only let you put 5 max in any given stat at the beginning, so I'm going to do 5 into dexterity and then 5 into strength. Then that raises his accuracy from -8 to 2, so each point of dexterity is giving 2 accuracy apparently, and it seems that each point of damage gives let's see, it seems to be every point of damage is 1 max and every 2 points of damage is 1 min. And then the stats also control the resistances here: strength, fire, dexterity, shock, vitality, poison, and willpower, cold. This is interesting for the other race, which I'll mention in a moment, but for the time being, he's gonna have a lot of strength, and it's gonna give him a lot of fire resist. In addition to his stats that you can allocate and the class and the race, there's also traits. Traits are kind of like racials and special abilities that this character is born with. They're just able to do this better. Minotaur has a special one called headhunting, so for every skull that you walk around with, then the strength goes up by 1. I just think it's an interesting one, so I always pick it for the Minotaurs because it's fun. And then I'm going to go with martial training because I want him to have high accuracy. He's going to gain strength every level from his barbarian class, and he's going to gain strength from walking around with skulls. He's going to gain strength from a variety of means. I want him to have high accuracy. There are others which I'll go over them in a moment as I go through the other characters, because I use most of them, not all of them obviously, because it's 2 per character, but I use the ones that are more or less suited for the class I'm playing. So martial training is really important to get that free accuracy. In addition to traits and attributes and all the other stuff, then you have lastly skills. You have to, unlike the other Grimrock game, you have to put your points into the skills at the beginning, or they take them away. In the other game, I didn't allocate my points originally because I wasn't sure what I would find, what I'd be able to use, and so I wanted a skill based on what I was able to actually pick up in the game. I didn't know if it was randomized or if it was the same every time, so I wasn't sure. So I didn't, the first time I did this just as like a little quickie to try it out, I played the game and then I was like, why am I not doing any extra things with my skills? Because if you don't use the skill points in the beginning, they throw them away and you don't get to use them. So you kind of have to commit to a path in the beginning on this one, which is not terribly difficult considering I know he's going to be a barb. I know he's going to be using the biggest weapon that I can find for him. So I'm going to put one in heavy weapons for him, and I'm going to put one in accuracy for him so that he can obviously continue to be really accurate. But they have alchemy. Alchemy allows you to craft potions and bombs and things like that. And you'll see the little dots here are special abilities that you unlock for having a higher skill. So, and it says in the tooltip as well, at 4th skill level, you brew potions that are stronger for healing and energy. And at 5th level, when you craft bombs, you get 3 bombs instead of 1. So that's really good for using the most out of the materials you have. Obviously, he's not an alchemist. I'm not going to make him an alchemist, but just for the sake of reading them off. Athletics is an interesting one. It increases health by 20 for every skill point. That could be really useful later on when, you know, some of the other things that I've needed are maxed out, because he's going to be a frontliner that's going to be swinging and taking a lot of damage. He's going to be basically the tank, but not really. He's going to be the tank for all intents and purposes because I'm not going to have a real tank. So that'll be useful later on. And then at the 3rd level, the carrying capacity is increased by 15 kilos, which is kind of a moot point because he's going to be gaining so much strength that his max load's going to go up anyways. And we have concentration, which increases the energy by 20 for every skill point put in it. And then at 3rd level, his energy regeneration goes up. That'll be useful for my wizard class or my battle mage, whichever I decide to go with, because they're going to want to have a lot of energy for casting spells. Light weapons is more or less the same as heavy weapons, except light weapons are kind of daggers and swords, that kind of stuff. Heavy weapons are big two-handed, you know, heavy axes and heavy maces and pole arms, that kind of thing. Missile weapons are bows and crossbows and that kind of thing. Throwing weapons are fun and interesting. Those are bombs and those are shurikens. Those are even rocks. Throwing weapons are rocks. So having a high throwing weapon skill from the beginning for a character that's going to throw a lot is going to do more damage with rocks. So firearms is a fun one. I watched a little bit of other people play this a little before I finagled my way into a copy, and it was interesting. They added some really cool guns and other things. I'm not going to go spoiling anything for anybody. You'll see it later in, but it's pretty cool. Interestingly enough, though, they can malfunction, but when you max out the firearm skill to level 5, then they don't suffer any malfunctions anymore. Malfunctions could either be jamming, or the gun blows up in your face. It doesn't destroy the gun, but it's like kind of like the round fired off backwards out of the chamber at you, except it deals damage to the whole party, at least for the weapon that I had seen. Accuracy is just, you know, that's basic. Every point in this skill gives me 10 accuracy, and then at 2nd level I can perform melee attacks from the back row. I can see that being useful, but I'm not going to have my backliners using any melee attacks. They're going to be doing other stuff, so I'm not going to have that for them. Critical is pretty straightforward. It improves the chance of getting a critical hit. It's only 3% for each skill point, so at 5 it's only 15%, which doesn't seem like much, but since each character starts off with 5%, no matter what, then it goes up to 20% right off the bat, and that only increases more with other bonuses, which we'll see later. 3rd level, you can do backstabs on an enemy if you are behind an enemy and you have with a dagger only, and it'll do triple damage. And then at 5th level, you can backstab with any light weapon, so you can backstab with, you know, light swords and that kind of stuff. Armor is interesting. So in the first Grimrock, armor classifications were light armor and heavy armor. And light armor were things like a heavy leather and heavy armor was like iron and steel and real heavy bulky stuff. They gave additional protection, but they reduced the evasion of anybody who didn't have the skill to wear it. So it's basically like if a skinny dude like me decided to put on a steel armor, a full suit of steel armor, and I'm not skilled in using the armor. I don't know how to move in the armor. I'm not big enough and strong enough to wield the armor. It's going to slow me down. So yeah, if somebody hits me with a baseball bat, I'm probably not going to get hurt, but I'm not going to be able to dodge it. So you could use this one. They've rolled the light armor and the heavy armors into one classification, and as you improve the armor skill, you're able to use light and heavy. And it also increases the protection by 5% for every skill point. It's interesting. So dodge is also really important. It's important for the tanking classes, but it's important for the classes that you'll see when I create them are not going to have a lot of health. They're not going to have a lot of tanking ability, so they're going to want to dodge. They're going to want to evade. And I'm going to put points into this similarly through other means so that they are able to dodge. But at 3rd level, the cooldown period for all your actions is decreased by 10%. I actually thought this was a weird one because it seems like that you would want the cooldown to be associated with the skill and the weapon that you're using, or the magic you're casting, but it's like, so dodge is making you more agile on your feet so you can do more often, I guess. That's the reasoning behind it anyways. The last 4 are very, very, very simple. I'm not going to go into them in any real detail. Fire magic, air magic, earth magic, and water magic. They're required to cast the spells, and then at the maximum level, then you'll get an additional resistance to that element. So I'm going to do accuracy and heavy weapons for Bardock, and I'm going to change his portrait to this one because it just looks even more menacing and hulking. So then we're going to skip down to this one here, and let me just pull this one up. I made this one, I kind of cheated a little bit. Originally I had a fighter class and I wanted him to be the tank, and I wanted the barbarian to be the heavy hitter. But I felt like that was a little redundant because then it was like there's no skill involved. I'm just making my front line a big beefy wall and letting them soak up damage. So I thought I would go a little bit weird on this one. This is interesting. So his name is Kyello. His, her, I don't know. I'm going to go Lizard Man. And I'm going to go with the cloaked one. Kind of looks like a she, maybe. I don't know. Bottom 4 are she's and the top 4 are he. So let's say she, Kyello. And then the class was, this is interesting, a rogue. So the reasoning behind this one is fun. Lizardmen get additional dexterity and additional resistance. So they are more resistant to fire, shock, poison, and cold, all 4 types of magics. And they also get additional dexterity, which is going to help for dodges. And then being a rogue, they have an ability to critical hit automatically when they're using missile or throwing weapons. And when they're dual wielding, they only suffer a 25% penalty instead of a 40% penalty to their weapon damage. So yeah, dual wielding means that you'll deal more, you'll have a higher attack power per each hand, but then they'll subsequently deal 40% less damage per, because you're unwieldy at doing it until you learn how to. 45 health though is real low, and 40 energy, and then it's +5 per level. I want to give him just a little bit of vitality because 45 is not a lot, and I don't want him to die too often in the beginning, otherwise he'll stay dead throughout the whole game. So as far as his stats go, I'm going to take my 10 points and I'm going to put 2 in vitality to give him a little bit more health. I'm going to take 3 points in strength, and then I'm going to max out the other 5 into dexterity because he has to be very agile. He has to be able to dodge stuff. As far as his traits go, I was going with agile for an additional 2 dexterity, and then I went with martial training because what I want him to be is a backstabber. I want him to be a shiver, sneak up behind enemies and stab the crap out of them and kill them. As far as skills go, I went light weapons and accuracy on him because I thought, why not? His accuracy is beefed out to 35, which is really real high, but that's also part of the dexterity. See, if I put well, I guess I can't put any more here, but you'll see there when I take the dexterity point out and put it back in, the accuracy goes up by 2. So since dexterity is his main stat, accuracy is going to be through the roof, which is good because he's going to be using light weapons, so he won't hit as hard, but he'll miss far less often. So that's Kyello, the rogue. He, she, haven't really decided yet. Then, okay, so this is my spellcaster. They don't tell you this, and I'm assuming you're watching because you want to figure this out. You want to get a gist of the game. Either play it for yourself or you're just watching me play it because you can't afford it, you don't want to buy it, you don't want to play it, you don't have time to play it, whatever. Spellcasters are necessary. You have to have one in the game. There are enemies that you have to have spells to kill, and there are spells required for certain parts of the game that if you don't have a spellcaster, you're not going to be able to use spells. Now, you can teach anybody how to use the spells, as far as I'm aware, by giving them the right spell magic, but I don't know for sure. All I know is that from the get-go, the spellcasters can cast spells with their proficient magic skill, barehanded or not. They can cast them automatically. Sorry, itchy eye. And I named her, well, this was a good name, Leywin. I don't know, she looks kind of, even though she's human, she looks elvish in some regard. So, and then I think I went on this one, I went Battle Mage. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Health is not quite as important because she's going to be in the back row, so I don't really need to worry about, giving her too much vitality, because I don't want to, I don't ever want to put her in danger anyways. I want her to sit in the back, be safe, do nothing. I gave, let's see, I gave Skilled as the trait. Humans are the only ones allowed to learn the skilled trait, and it allows them to have a third skill point at the beginning of the game, but they're only allowed to use it to progress something from 0 to 1. It's just to help diversify more, and it's important for the caster class so that I can get more magic abilities in. My third skill is concentration to increase my energy, and then allow the energy regeneration rate to increase once I hit level 3. The first trait was going to be Strong Mind, just so I can get 2 more willpower in there. And willpower is your energy regeneration rate and the amount of energy points you have in the beginning. So, since she's going to be a caster, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've got to keep those 5 points in willpower so that she stays as high in willpower as possible. Dexterity is not as important. It is related, at least in her regard, to her evasion and her shock resistance. She's not really ever going to be able to evade, so I'd rather put the other 5 points in vitality. I could also do some points in strength, but I don't really want, max load is literally the only thing that giving her any strength is going to be useful for her. She'll get resist fire, and that's fine, but we don't really need resist fire on her because she's going to get resist fire magic when she maxes out the fire, and then she'll be up where everybody else is as well, just because of that skill. I want her to just cast the hardest hitting spells that I possibly can, and so for that we want willpower and we want high skills into magic. So the last guy, I was clicking randomly for a while trying to figure out a name for this guy. Real fun. He kind of looks like, and this is mostly because the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie came out a while back and I watched it, and he totally looks like Master Splinter. And I was randoming through here for a while, and nothing really jumped out at me. And I swear to God, I ran him through it and it called him Money. And I was like, you know what? My Ratling is going to be Money. He's totally Money. Shut up. Alright, I'm going to make him an Alchemist. This is a really fun class. Health and energy are interesting. It's 6 per level, 4 per level, but, it's whatever. It's 50 and 50. It starts off nice and basic. Herbs in the inventory multiply. I'm going to give him all my herbs to hold on to. The growth rate is determined by the number of steps you take, so the more steps you take, the faster they multiply. And then firearms have a 50% less chance to malfunction. So the assumption here is, as an alchemist, he's going to be wielding guns and making bombs. I don't know. I think that's really awesome. I could not figure out what the best way to input his skills were, but I figured missile weapons. I figured that was somehow in relation to firearms, but I didn't know for sure. So I decided to put all the points into dexterity. And then it was, let's see. Seems to be 2 points in vitality and 3 points in strength. And I think the reason I did that was carrying capacity, maybe, and melee and throwing. Not that there are too many other real good options. Since he's a backliner, he doesn't need to have super huge amounts of health, but a little bit of vitality goes a long way. I'm actually going to take one more point out of strength and put it back in vitality, so he starts off as 65. That's more comfortable, 65 to 75, because then he's going to be actually the one with the least amount of health, and that makes me nervous. Ratlings are kind of weak, I guess, in that regard. Alchemy was his first point because he's an alchemist, so I want him to be able to craft potions. And then I also went with firearms because if he's got 50% less chance to malfunction, they obviously want you to use firearms, and I feel like that makes sense. Making bombs, making guns, and making explosives, so firearms. As far as traits go, they have a really cool trait, mutation. So when one of my attributes, when I level up, one of those 4 attributes is going to just randomly increase by 1. You don't get to choose, so it could be kind of weird by the end of the game, but I figure it's literally just free stats and free bonuses for him, and it's probably the strongest of all of these. I mean, Agile gets +2 dexterity in the beginning. That's great and all, but it's only +2 dexterity. Same for, let's see, Healthy, +2 vitality. Mutation, if he's level 30 by the end of the game, Mutation will give him an additional 30 stats, or 29 from 29 levels over the course of him leveling. So that's more important than anything else he can have. Since he's the last character, I'll go over what the other traits are. Aggressive gets additional damage. So if I pick that, you'll see the damage is 2 to 3. If I take it off, it's 1 to 1. It just gives an additional +4 damage. I'm not sure how they split that out, if it's 1 to the min and 3 to the max, but I'm not really sure. It's just +4 damage, it's a flat rate. Aura is +20 energy, which would be good if I had a character that needed energy and wasn't going to gain it on their own leveling up, but really, you know, it's kind of a waste for 20 energy. Cold-blooded is resist cold +25. I can see how this would be useful, but for the standard game, I'm not going to add it to anybody because, yes, there are cold creatures, but there's no more, as far as I'm aware. There are no more cold creatures than there are fire creatures, than there are air creatures, etc. So I'm not going to give him that. Endurance is interesting. Max carrying capacity goes up by 25 kilos, which is kind of a lot considering athletics only gives you, at the top level here, it only gives you 15 kilos. So that's kind of weird, but and then the food consumption rate goes down. So one of the things about being a Minotaur is the food consumption rate is 25% higher than normal. So if I were to give him, if I were to give my Minotaur Bardock, if I was going to give him the endurance ability, it would more or less cancel out the food consumption rate that he has, but he doesn't really need it. His strength is so off the wall that he's going to be able to carry crap tons of stuff by the end of the game, so that's a waste for him and anybody else. I'm going to have him just be my mule. He's already a Minotaur, so he might as well also be, well, carry everything. Fast metabolism is from the Lizardmen, so consumption rate goes down by 20 for food. Healing potions are twice as effective, and then health and energy regenerate faster. It's lizards. Yeah, it's trolls. It follows. I don't know why I equate trolls to lizards, but I do. So yeah, faster regeneration ability. Healthy is just +2 vitality. That's a waste. Muscular, +2 strength. That's a waste. For him, because of mutation. Natural armor is +5 protection. That wouldn't be bad if I was playing a traditional tanking class, but I'm not. I'm more or less starting off the game with the intent to kill anything else before it has a chance to kill me. I don't know how that's going to equate out to the end of the game, but this is how I'm going to play it. Poison resistance is poison resist +25. Rage is interesting. Only the Minotaurs can use it, but when he goes down to 20% or less health, he gets 10 strength. And I don't know how long it lasts, though. I've seen it in other people's live streams where they go down and then, you know, somebody enrages and then they're dealing more damage, but I feel like I don't want to rely on him being really low on health. I want to rely on him doing a crap ton of damage while he's as healthy as he can be. So, Strong Mind is +2 willpower. That's the one that I gave here to the caster. Willpower is important for the energy regeneration rate and the number of energy points, but since he's not going to be using too much with energy points, that's useless for him. Agile was the one that I picked here. I may redo that, but Dexterity +2 brings him up to 19, which is pretty good. Chitin Armor is insectoid only. I'm just going to change real quick, change the race to insectoid. I think they're all weird looking. I get it, they're bugs, so I don't know. Doesn't tickle my fancy. Let's see. That's are good. Chin. Okay. If you had an insectoid knight or an insectoid fighter that was supposed to operate as your tank, that would be useful because 10 protection for free from the start of the game is pretty good. And then you could always combine that with natural armor to get 15 protection and then make him super beefy. Demon Ancestor, your great-grandfather had fiery eyes, resist fire 25. So you'll notice that there's going to be one for each. There's going to be one for resist shock. I think there's... Actually, I don't know if there is. Yeah, I don't know if there's shock. The next one's Endure Elements, which are also lizardmen. So it's kind of like being thick-skinned, and they have resist plus 25 for all. Bass Learner is humans only. They gain 10% experience points faster. The racial element for humans is that they gain 10% experience points faster, so that would stack in addition to 10% from their being a human. Headhunter, I already went over that one. Martial Training, Mutation, Poison Immunity, so this makes them completely immune to poison, and I feel like that's kind of weird because you have Poison Resistant, and then you have Poison Immunity. So if you were using a lizardman, why would you ever select Poison Resistant? You'd always put Poison Immunity. So it feels like these immunity ones are kind of bunk, but it's just me. Quick is Insectoid only. That's like, it's kind of like the free bonus from Dodge from getting to level 3. And it makes all of your, all of the actions that you take 10% less time to recover. So I can see how that'd be useful, but I'm not going to go for that even if I had an Insectoid. And then the last one is Tough. You're resistant to physical punishment and health plus 20. So let's see. If I had to rethink it, I would probably go with Evasion, but I'll just go with Agile and keep the dexterity up. So that's everybody's skills already taken. Everybody's class is good. Everybody's race is good. Let's see. Bardock still has 2 more points. So up those back in strength. And everybody has their traits. So there we go. I'm going to start the game. I'm going to put up the cinematic, and then, yeah. Really interesting. That probably wasn't supposed to happen. So, okay, the compass starts whirring magically, weirdly, and then it controls the ship, steers it into the rocks, and then it crashes. And of course, somehow, the cage with these four people manages to be buoyed up on a door no bigger than what Jack couldn't fit on, and then that coasts into the beach. Okay, whatever. Um, so this is the intro, and you'll see here I'm kind of locked in a box. I got no way to go. Being a traditional dungeon crawler, it's going to be Q and E are going to turn yourself left and right, and then W, A, S, and D are going to forward, back, strafe, left and right. So I'm going to end it here for part one, and when we come back to part two, we'll find out how to get out of the box because, it's kind of interesting.